Endgame Encore. Avengers Endgame. Encore brings the movie back to theaters, but don't think this is just a rerun. Marvel put together an extended version of the MCU's biggest hit to turn the movie into a direct bridge to Doomsday, the next huge event in the franchise. The main draw is around 7 minutes of never-before-seen footage, including an exclusive opening and a new post-credits scene that officially connects to the Doomsday story. It hits theaters on September 25th, 2026.
We're re-releasing Avengers Endgame on September 25th.
Vision Quest. Vision Quest lands on Disney Plus in October 2026. The story picks up after the events of WandaVision and closes out what people are calling the Westview trilogy, which started with Scarlet Witch and continued in Agatha all along. This time the lead is White Vision, the rebuilt version of the hero who got all of his memories back, but without the emotions that gave them meaning. And that's exactly where the big conflict comes in. Vision knows everything about his past, but he can't feel that those memories actually belong to him. Searching for his own identity, he goes on a journey inside his own mind, revisiting memories and completely surreal settings while he tries to figure out who he really is. The show also brings back James Spader as Ultron, plus it introduces humanized versions of IAs like Edith and Friday. Another highlight is Tommy Maximoff, Wanda and Vision's son, who gets a big role in the story. Doomsday. Avengers Doomsday kicks off the beginning of the end of the multiverse saga, and it brings together pretty much every major hero in the franchise to stop several realities from being wiped out. The Russo brothers are back in the director's chair, the same guys behind Infinity War and Endgame, which already sent fan expectations through the roof. The biggest headline is Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Dr. Doom, one of Marvel's greatest comic book villains. Everything points to Doomsday being the setup for that scenario before Secret Wars. It comes out on December 18th, 2026, Born Again. In Daredevil. Born Again Season 3 promises to put Matt Murdock in the toughest spot of his entire career. After everything that went down before, the lawyer who lives a double life as Daredevil ends up revealing his identity and gets sent to prison. Here's the catch. This isn't just any prison. A good chunk of the criminals locked up in there are behind bars because of him. So every hallway turns into a trap. While Matt tries to survive without being able to operate freely as a vigilante, Hell's Kitchen sinks right back into chaos. With Daredevil off the streets, crime goes up and other street-level heroes have to fill that huge gap. The show is expected to bring back characters like Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, turning this season into a kind of Defenders reunion. Wilson Fisk is still a major piece of the story too. Even after losing his political power, he keeps pulling strings in the New York underworld and setting the stage for even bigger conflicts. Secret Wars. With Avengers Secret Wars, Marvel is promising the biggest event in MCU history. The movie is the conclusion of the multiverse saga, and it starts right after the chaos of Doomsday. The incursions, those collisions between different universes, finally hit their limit and cause the complete collapse of the multiverse. Just when it looks like it's all over, a new reality rises out of the pieces of the worlds that survived. That place is Battleworld, a planet built from fragments of completely different universes, and it's ruled by Victor Von Doom. Taking advantage of the end of the multiverse, he pulls this new world together under his command and starts acting like a full-on God Emperor. The heroes who escape the destruction have to band together to take on Doom. The expectation is that variants of classic heroes show up too, turning the movie into a huge tribute to more than 20 years of Marvel adaptations on the big screen. It comes out on December 17th, 2027. X-Men. Set for 2028, the X-Men reboot officially opens what's being called the Mutant Saga, following the events of Secret Wars and marking a new era for Marvel in theaters. Jake Schreier, the guy who made Thunderbolts, is directing. Filming should start in 2027, with the project already deep into pre-production. The cast is built out of a whole new generation of actors, and Marvel finally made it official at D23. Sadie Sink is Jean Grey, Samara Weaving is Emma Frost, and Kit Connor is Cyclops. Christopher Abbott steps in as Charles Xavier, Inde Navarrete plays Rogue, and Maya Boyd is Storm. The villain reveal was saved for last. Adam Driver beamed in by video to confirm he's playing Nathaniel Essex, better known as Mr. Sinister. As for Hugh Jackman, he should stick around as Wolverine a while longer, leaving a new version of the character for somewhere down the road. The story pulls heavy inspiration from the classic comics and the X-Men '97 animated series, focusing on daily life at the Xavier Mansion and the challenges young mutants deal with while they learn to control their powers and face prejudice from society. The main villain being floated is Mr. Sinister, a character who could work as the foundation for future adaptations of the big sagas like Age of Apocalypse, Ghost Rider. And our favorite biker is finally getting a new movie in 2028, and this time Marvel looks set on giving us the character the way fans have always asked for. The headline here is the casting of Ryan Gosling. Funny enough, Gosling himself had been chasing the role for years. He kept saying it was the character he wanted to play the most.
As you know, this is a character I've wanted to play for a very long time. Thank you. Thank you.
And here's where the mystery that split fans starts. Marvel did not reveal which Ghost Rider Gosling is playing. Everybody assumed it'd be Johnny Blaze, the stuntman who sold his soul to the demon Mephisto to save his adoptive father.
Oh, that'll do just fine.
That's the most famous origin, the one Nicolas Cage already did. But there's one detail. The logo Marvel revealed on stage is almost identical to the logo from the 90s comic. And that comic wasn't about Blaze, it was about Danny Ketch. He finds a mysterious motorcycle in a graveyard while he's trying to save his sister, who was bleeding out. With his hands covered in her blood, he touches a symbol on the bike, and he transforms. Then the comics drop the bomb. Danny and Johnny Blaze are brothers, both cursed by the same bloodline. If the theory is right, Marvel picked the version that's never shown up in live action, which makes total sense. The whole pitch also promises a much darker tone than most Marvel movies. The story should dig into supernatural horror, demons, curses, and mystical creatures. And the one running the show is Sean Levy, the same director behind Deadpool and Wolverine. Two more names leaked too. Saoirse Baron Cohen would be back as Mephisto, and Rosamund Pike would join in a role nobody knows anything about. Another interesting detail is that a lot of fans believe this movie is only the start of something bigger. There are rumors that the Ghost Rider, whoever he turns out to be, works as the centerpiece for putting together the Midnight Suns, the team made up of Marvel's supernatural heroes like Blade, Moon Knight, and even Doctor Strange. If that actually happens, Ghost Rider could kick off a completely new phase of the Marvel Universe. Black Panther 3. With one of Marvel's most important phases wrapping up, Wakanda moves back to the center of the story in Black Panther 3. The third movie in the franchise is already confirmed for theaters in December 2028, and it promises to show a new generation taking on the hero's legacy. The one stepping into the spotlight now is T'Challa II, T'Challa's son, who's played by David Janssen.
I want to say thank you so much.
Introduced as a kid at the end of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, he comes back years older, finally ready to carry the Black Panther mantle. The story should follow exactly that transition. T'Challa II has to prove he deserves to lead Wakanda while dealing with the weight of carrying the name of one of the greatest heroes ever. Only the mission won't be simple. Rumors say Nakia will do everything she can to stop her son from going down such a dangerous path, creating a family conflict that could be the emotional heart of the movie. Meanwhile, Wakanda keeps going through political changes. Shuri has apparently stepped away from leadership, and M'Baku is still a powerful figure inside the nation, which leaves the future of the throne completely up in the air. That setup should turn the movie into a fight that's political and personal at the same time. Another big expectation is Storm showing up here. The mutant, who in the comics has a strong connection to Wakanda and even a romance with T'Challa, is being pointed to by a bunch of rumors as one of the production's biggest surprises. If it happens, that's one more bridge between the X-Men and Marvel's new phase. Ryan Coogler is back as director, while Denzel Washington should also make his long-awaited debut in the franchise, in a role written specifically for him. Shang-Chi 2. Even after years of uncertainty, Shang-Chi 2 is finally picking up steam again inside Marvel Studios. There's still no official release date, but the sequel is back in development, with Destin Daniel Cretton returning to direct and Dave Callaham working on the script. The production got pushed back because of changes to the studio's calendar and Cretton's commitments to Spider-Man Brand New Day, but now the project actually looks like it's moving for good. In fact, industry filings point to shooting starting soon in Australia, using facilities other Marvel productions have already worked in. The story should keep following Shang-Chi, the martial arts master who inherited the mysterious 10 rings after beating his father. Even with that win, where those weapons came from is still a huge mystery. Rumors say the movie could get into time travel and the fallout from the multiverse saga, even working under the provisional title Wreckage of Time. At the same time, we'll see how Schilling runs the Ten Rings organization, now under her command, which could create new conflicts inside the family itself. Another piece of speculation getting a lot of talk is the possible introduction of a new version of Iron Fist in the MCU. Nothing's confirmed, but the idea makes a lot of sense, since both characters share a strong tie to martial arts and mystical elements in the comics. Before all that, Shang-Chi shows up again in Doomsday, setting the stage for his next solo adventure. Nova. After years of being planned as a Disney Plus series, Nova switched formats and should now be a Marvel Studios production for theaters. The change is part of the studio's new strategy of cutting back on shows and betting on bigger movies. The project is still early, but it already has Michael Waldron, the writer behind Loki and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, working on the story. The movie should introduce Richard Rider, a regular young guy from Earth whose life gets flipped upside down when he's chosen by the last survivor of the Nova Corps. That organization was a protection force for the galaxy, but it was pretty much wiped out out by Thanos before the events of Infinity War. When he gets the Nova Force, Richard picks up abilities like super strength, flight, speed, and access to a powerful cosmic energy. Basically, he goes from being an ordinary person to one of the main defenders of space. The plot should also get into the fall of Xandar, the planet introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy. That destruction is one of the biggest events in the MCU that's never been shown directly on screen. On top of introducing a new hero, Nova could be the start of a new phase of Marvel's cosmic stories, filling the space the Guardians of the Galaxy left behind. The projection is that the movie won't hit theaters until 2029 at the earliest. Deadpool 4. With the massive success of Deadpool and Wolverine, which pulled in over $1.3 billion at the box office, Marvel Studios has already started planning another sequel in the franchise. Ryan Reynolds confirmed that Deadpool 4 is in its earliest stages and that he's already working on the first ideas for the script. The project is still a long way from shooting. Marvel hasn't confirmed a director, extra cast, or a release date, mostly because the studio is locked in on the next big Avengers events. Even so, Reynolds has said he doesn't just want to repeat the formula from the earlier movies. The idea is to dig into comic book stories that haven't made it to the big screen yet. Those stories show a more human side of Wade Wilson, without dropping the absurd humor that became the character's trademark. Another interesting rumor is that the movie could ditch the fully solo format and go for a team adventure instead. The most talked about possibility is seeing Deadpool alongside other mutants, forming a new version of X-Force. For now, there's no official release window, but considering how important Deadpool has become inside Marvel, Wade Wilson will probably show up in other events before he comes back for his next solo adventure. New Avengers. This one is the least likely on the list, and maybe that's exactly why it's the most interesting. Thunderbolts didn't blow up at the box office, but the movie became a favorite with audiences and critics, and Marvel liked director Jake Schreier's work so much that they handed him the X-Men. The result? In June 2026, an insider named a Thunderbolts sequel on the list of projects Marvel is actively working on right now. Nothing officially announced, but the name is on the table. The group made up of Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, John Walker, Red Guardian, Ghost and Sentry is nowhere near a traditional team. These are characters with messy pasts, questionable choices, and methods that are way different from the old Avengers. And that difference is exactly what could make a follow-up so good. The sequel should deal with the changes caused by Avengers Secret Wars, which promises to transform the Marvel Universe. The movie could work as a fresh start for the Thunderbolts, bringing in new members and pulling the team closer to the comics, where characters like Red Hulk have been part of the group. Midnight Suns. The Midnight Suns movie hasn't been officially announced by Marvel Studios yet, but it's one of the most talked about projects behind the scenes. The idea is to finally bring together the supernatural side of the MCU, pulling characters who've shown up separately over the last few years into one darker team. Unlike the Avengers, this group would be made up of characters tied to magic, monsters, and occult forces like Blade, Moon Knight, Elsa Bloodstone, and Ghost Rider. It's basically Marvel building its own horror team. The plot is still a secret, but rumors say the movie could adapt the comic arc Damnation, where the demon Mephisto tries to spread his influence on Earth, forcing these heroes to team up against a threat unlike anything the Avengers usually face. In the comics, Doctor Strange usually leads the team, but the MCU could put Wong in charge of bringing the characters together, working as a new Nick Fury, and Ghost Rider could take the role of field leader on missions. The project went through changes behind the scenes and gained traction after the production problems on Blade, which got cancelled. Marvel could use the movie to connect all of these characters in one big supernatural event. Doctor Strange 3. In Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Stephen Strange got more and more tied to the MCU's biggest problem, the collapse of the multiverse. And here comes the part that confuses a lot of people. That collapse is not the plot of Doctor Strange 3. Kevin Feige himself confirmed that Doomsday and Secret Wars are inspired by Time Runs Out and Secret Wars, the comic arcs where universes crash into each other until the multiverse is gone. So the crisis gets resolved in the Avengers movies. What's left for Doctor Strange 3 is the after, and that's exactly why the movie is right where it is. In June 2026, somebody asked insider Alex Perez what the status of the movie was. The answer was blunt: it's on the shelf. According to him, Marvel's focus right now is Black Panther 3, X-Men, the Thunderbolts sequel, Midnight Suns, and the next Avengers. Doctor Strange isn't on the list, and there's a pretty dark theory that explains it. In the Secret Wars comics, Strange becomes the sheriff of Battleworld, Doom's right-hand man, until he turns on the boss and pays for it with his own life. If the movie goes down that road, take a guess why nobody's in a rush to write him a solo film. Spider-Man 5 and 6. After Brand New Day, Marvel and Sony are reportedly already thinking about the next chapters of Peter Parker's new trilogy, and everything points to Spider-Man 5 digging into one of the hero's most famous stories, the arrival of the Venom symbiote. At the end of No Way Home, a small piece of Tom Hardy's Venom stayed behind in the Marvel Universe. That detail seems small, but it could be the starting point for one of Peter's biggest transformations. In the comics, the symbiote creates the famous black suit, boosting the hero's powers but also making his behavior a lot more aggressive. And the timing couldn't be better. Peter gets the black suit in the comics during Secret Wars, and in the post-credits we saw a Spider-Man location out in space, maybe on Battleworld. So the suit could be born in Secret Wars, and Spider-Man 5 would be the movie that deals with the damage. On top of that, Brand New Day spends the whole movie showing an isolated Peter, watching his friends' lives from a distance, until he decides to tell the truth. I won't spoil how that happens, but the movie ends with Peter a lot closer to the people he'd lost, and that's where the symbiote gets dangerous. It wouldn't show up to fill an empty space, it'd show up to threaten what the guy just rebuilt. The most talked about theory is that Peter wears the symbiote during the 5th movie, and once he figures out how bad its influence is, he ends up getting rid of it. That new Venom could then show up as the big villain of Spider-Man 6. There's still no official confirmation about the plot or a release date, but everything points to Marvel getting a darker phase ready for Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And hey, if you're hyped for the next Marvel movie on screen right now, there's a video where we go through all the crazy theories for Avengers Doomsday explained. Click it and watch. I'll see you there.